Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by UFC Lightweight Dennis Hallman. Dennis, how are you?
I'm doing great, man.
Dennis, you were supposed to have a fight at UFC 151. The show obviously got canceled. I'm curious, when did you find out that you weren't going to be fighting at 151?
I found out the same day as everybody else, man. Sunday morning, I guess.
Did you hear from news sources from that media call, or did Joe Silva or your manager, somebody from the UFC, call you?
No, we heard from the internet first, man. They didn't wait till after.
And Dennis, your situation is kind of the strangest on the entire card because you were supposed to fight at 150, then it got shifted to the 151 card, and now you don't have the fight. What is the worst part about this whole situation? Is it that you've been shifted around so many times? Is it now you're going from this card to the UFC on FX undercard, so you lost that pay-per-view slot? What's the worst part about this whole situation?
Well, I think they're all equally as bad. I was a week away from fighting, so I was at the end of my training camp, and then getting bumped forward without getting paid multiple times in a row is tough, and then losing a ton of sponsorship money because you go from pay-per-view to being buried somewhere on the bottom of the card is also difficult.
I saw an article on MMA Junkie that had you quoted in it, and you were talking about John Jones. Now that you've had time to sit back and think, because we're a couple days out from that announcement, do you still feel the same way?
Well, I wouldn't say something we didn't feel that way. So yeah, I feel the same way. It's equally the UFC's fault because they could have managed to do something, but they have it's a business for them as well, and so they're trying to cut their losses. They thought they were going to end up losing money on something, they wanted to cut their losses where they were instead of let them get further in the hole.
Dennis, you've been around this sport for a really long time. Has this ever happened to you before, where an entire card that you've been on has fallen through?
It's never happened to me before. No,
and
I've seen it happen before where people canceled smaller level cards, but never to me. And obviously, you guys know it's never happened with UFC.
Did you ever think, however many years you've been in the UFC, a couple stints here and there, and now you've been with the company for a little while now, did you ever think that this was ever going to be a possibility that they would have to cancel a show?
Never. I thought that they would have their act together to the point to where they'd have a backup plan, but the UFC learned a lesson. They can't trust anybody. They put all their marketing behind one guy, and that guy bit the hand that fed him, and that was something they didn't expect. So they didn't expect for that type of thing to happen, just like I didn't expect for it to happen. I don't think it'll ever happen again, though.
You mentioned the part about training, being ready for the fight. When you're training, you're sort of building up. You're working towards peaking at the right time. Now, what do? Do you go back to the drawing board? How do you try to recreate this training that you had going on?
It's not like I have much of a choice. I still have to fight. For me, I'm gonna because of the weight cut, I don't like to stay too low of weight for too long because then it's hard to put your weight back on. So for me, it's more of a pain in the butt. So I gotta put weight back on and then start my diet back over. So this week is about putting weight back on, and then I gotta start the cut again. So instead of it being like a 6-week cut, it turns into a 6-week cut with a 5-week cut with a 1 week off and then another 6-week cut. So it's a little bit stressful on the body.
I don't want to dig too deep into your personal business and your financial situation, but are you at a good place financially? Was this a fight that you needed to have? You needed this payday?
I don't think any fighter, unless they're John Jones, is at a good place financially.
Right.
That's kind of a feast and famine. And for me, I was supposed to fight in May, and I got injured. They got bumped forward to August, which got bumped forward to September, which gets bumped forward to October. So not the best place,
And Dennis, how much money exactly was lost? You don't have to give me an exact dollar amount, but is it over $50,000? Would you say?
Well, here's the best example. I was getting just over 20,000 responses for being on pay-per-view, and cut that all the way, and try to get the sponsors to pay the same thing for
Now, a lot of fighters have been talking about, they were bringing, friends and family, etc., coming down, to watch the fight, and the hotels and the plane tickets and all that kind of stuff. How many people were you going to bring to the fight to support you?
That's a good number. Maybe at least a dozen. So all those people get shafted. And I don't think anybody's trying to go to Vegas for Labor Day just for fun.
Right.
It's kind of packed and expensive when you don't have something there to be there for.
Was some of the stuff refundable, or is it transferable, anything like that?
That's up to the different venues. I know some people got their, but they having to pay a fine on their tickets. But I didn't get into everybody's personal, how much it cost you for this kind of garbage,
Right. Now, going forward, Thiago Tavares, you're going to be fighting him in October on the UFC on FX5 card. Talk a little bit about the matchup and where you see the fight going.
It's going to be a good fight. We both are grapplers at heart, and I think that we're going to end up striking with each other until we can figure out how to take the other guy down. So I should be bigger than him, and that means that he should be faster than me, and so it's going to be one of those those battles. Hopefully we can entertain people and maybe get a bonus.
You've been preparing for this fight a really long time. How many times have you played this fight in your head?
Well, I do it every day. So it happens a lot in my head. Before you go to bed, you think about the fight, and you try to replay it over and over, and that's kind of how it is.
Now, this matchup is very intriguing because a majority of your wins are by submission. You've never been submitted. A majority of his wins are by submission, and he's never been submitted. Does that factor in at all to a game plan going into this fight? Would you like to be the first guy ever to submit him, or are you just looking to get a win?
My game plan is always to try to impose my will and to either get the TK or the submission, and that doesn't change with what he's been able to stop people from doing. So for me, it's my opponent has to stop what I'm going to do first, and if they can do that, then we can make a fight of it. If not, then they're going to get submitted or TKO'd.
You've been doing a lot of training with some up-and-coming fighters in India. Does this fight, now it being a week after the Super Fight League card, does this change you going over there and helping those guys out?
Yeah, you don't even know what's going to happen with Super Fight League. Those guys postponed event after event after event. So I think they're having an announcement on September 24th. That doesn't mean that they're going to have an event on September 29th. So I don't know when or where or anything about what they plan on doing, because they're keeping things to themselves.
So there's a pretty good chance that there won't be any Super Fight League cards anymore. Is that what?
No, I'm saying that I'm sure that there's going to be more Super Fight League cards, but as far as the date that they're saying the next event's going to be, that's been changed a couple times, and so I can't. I don't know when they're going to do it. I just know that they're making an announcement on the 24th of September, and that would be then that's the only information we're going to have. Just because they're making an announcement doesn't mean they're going to say that a fight is within the next week or two.
Right.
Who knows when the next event's going to be.
Right. I wanted to talk a little bit about that with you, the training that you're doing over there. Obviously, Ken Pavia was your manager. Is that how it all came together? He just called you up one day and said, hey, do you want to come help these guys out?
Actually, he just called me and put me in touch with the guy who made the decisions on that. And I worked out with him, that guy. So I mean, it was just basically the guy that put the people together, the right people together.
And are you working with fighters just from India, or are you working from other fighters from that part of the world?
Well, I was working with the fighters from India, and then it was before their what do you want to call it, their reality show that they were doing, and they wanted me to be a coach in the reality show, but at that time I had a UFC fight coming up, so I couldn't take the time away from my training camp and that kind of thing to be on the reality show. So I stepped away from that, and they continued it with new people. So, but those were the only guys that I was training with the original Team India.
And now the fighters themselves, what kind of skills did they already have before working with you? Did some guys know a little bit about kickboxing, a little bit of wrestling, stuff like that, or was it just basically these are just tough guys who wanted to try it out?
It was more like UFC circa 1994.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had their own style. It wasn't like anybody was just clueless to a certain style, but they were definitely clueless when it came to mixed martial arts and
right.
putting it together in the aspect. They understood what mixed martial arts was, but the important parts of transitioning all the separate sports into one sport is where they were lacking.
Mm-hmm.
There's guys that are very good at striking, guys that were good wrestlers, and guys that had white belt submission skills, but no one was really able to put it together, and that's kind of what we were there, just showing them how to put everything together.
Before you started working with them, who were some of these guys being coached by, or were they some of them just doing it on their own?
There's a guy there that he runs the whole MMA scene over there named Dan Isaacs, and he has an idea. He was more of a striker, and he had an understanding of the grappling, but not the technical ability to transfer it over. It's best to bring in some jiu-jitsu guys and stuff like that to make his guys better. He'd taken some guys internationally to straight up, Russian mafia style cards before, like kind of Kazakhstan, where they tell you who's going to win and who's going to lose before the fight. So they've been involved in some real shady stuff over the Asian MMA. Not by any fault of their own, just by getting involved with the wrong people. But as far as the MMA like we know it, or the way that we see it, there was no one over there with that type of experience.
Mm-hmm. And the fan base, you said that the fighters were kind of, from in that stage of where we were here in the U.S. in 1994. Are the fans similar to that, or do some of the fans kind of have an idea what's going on?
The fans really have no idea what's going on. Mm-hmm. The very first fight that was there, the women were crying in I believe it was the Joey Jal versus Professor X fight. They're bleeding, and women were crying in the stands. Oh my God, stop this violence! But over there, it's a different culture. Like they're really involved in their Hollywood, and they call it Bollywood. Mm-hmm. And they really want the drama. Like if you watch the Super Fight League Challenger series on TV, they add like music and sound, and all the fight scenes are in slow motion with Matrix sounds and stuff like that. That's just how they enjoy watching their television. Mm-hmm. So it's not. They want reality, but they want Bollywood reality.
Mm-hmm. Dennis, the last thing I wanted to end on is with this whole situation going down. Is there anything positive that you can take away from this whole fiasco that just happened?
I gotta eat. I gotta eat again. It's not really anything positive, man.
Right.
Except for I get 5 more weeks to train for somebody that I've already been training 11 weeks for.
Right.
So other than it was that I get to shoot more sunny days in the summertime here in Washington, and other than that, I'm not really excited about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dennis, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk, and good luck in October, UFC on FX5 against Thiago Tavares.
Thank you. Yeah,